After releasing 5 games from Rare just 1 week ago, it's another down week for the Nintendo Switch Online. But that's okay, because we still have a handful of Nintendo Entertainment System games that are in desperate need to get the review crew treatment. This includes killer 8-bit hits like Ninja Gaiden, Balloon Fight, and the oft-forgotten Vice Project Doom. Yes, all these games hit the Switch years ago, but I still need to ask, are any of these games actually worth playing? To answer that question, I decided to flip through the pages of GamePro, Mean Machines, computer and video games, and more classic magazines to see what the critics said back when these games first came out. Get ready to enjoy some early cutscenes because this is a very cinematic episode of the Nintendo Switch Online review crew. While Balloon Fight may not have been the most original game on the Nintendo Entertainment System, it was certainly one of the most entertaining games in those early days. Inspired by Williams' hit arcade game Joust, this simple action game sees 1 or 2 players floating around the level in an attempt to pop the opponent's balloons and be the last person standing. Floating. The game mixed things up with a fun bonus stage and multiplayer support, making it a good value when it hit the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1986. It's a genuine classic these days, but let's go ahead and see what the critics said back when Balloon Fight first came out. Let's first start with the lower of the 2 scores, which came from Nintendo Magazine System. In their very first issue, they looked back at the classic action game and gave it a 74%. The aim of Balloon Fight is simplicity itself. Boasting gameplay that's similar to the classic Joust arcade game, it's your job to fly around the screen descending on enemy sprites and bursting their bubbles while guarding your own from attack. Even though there's simultaneous 2-player action, it all grows dull very quickly. Now, things were a bit rosier over at Computer and Video Games, who gave Balloon Fight a solid 8 out of 10. Once again, they noted the similarities to Joust, though certainly didn't see that as a negative. The graphics are nothing special, and the sound is merely adequate. Nevertheless, the game delivers in its feel. Overall, this is a great game for those of you with an urge to surge and a little bit of finesse on the joystick. I don't know if I have that urge to surge, but Balloon Fight is definitely worth checking out, especially when you look at the star power responsible for this creation. If you haven't already, give Balloon Fight a try on the Switch. Inspired by the Ninja Gaiden series, Vice Project Doom is a cinematic action game for the Nintendo Entertainment System with political intrigue, futuristic fear-mongering, and a good, old-fashioned hero that gets the girl. At least on the cover. What actually happens in this game is a lot more tragic and heartbreaking, but I'll leave that for you to discover. And you should definitely do that, because this is a surprisingly fun and satisfying 8-bit action game, complete with cool levels and some genuinely innovative boss designs. I dug this game as a kid, and I still think that it holds up remarkably well. Nintendo Power wasn't as impressed as I was, giving it a 3.8 out of 5. Unfortunately, this is still early enough in the magazine's life where they really didn't write critical reviews, so the 3.8 out of 5 is all we really have. Thankfully, GamePro is here to the rescue. Giving the game a very similar 4 out of 5, they liked that the game mixes elements from Ninja Gaiden, Spy Hunter, Operation Wolf, and even Golgo 13. They concluded that, actually, Vice is more than nice, it's superb. The intriguing story sequences keep you interested, and the excellent action keeps you on your toes. If it seems easy at first, hang in there. There's enough challenge to make Vice a good habit. This is yet another strong release for the Switch that doesn't get talked about enough. If you liked Ninja Gaiden's cinematic approach and are up for a crazy story, definitely give Vice Project Doom a play. For gamers of a certain age, Ninja Gaiden on the Nintendo Entertainment System was nothing short of a revelation. In an era when a game's plot was usually limited to the instruction manual, Ninja Gaiden bucked that trend by giving us an action platformer with cinematic cutscenes that told a surprisingly deep and involving story. While certainly primitive by today's standards, these cinema scenes were incredible and made you actually care about the characters like never before. Of course, it didn't hurt that the actual ninja action was also a lot of fun. Between the excellent story, the amazing presentation, and the hard-boiled action, Ninja Gaiden went on to become one of the best 8-bit trilogies of all time. Let's see if the critics agreed when they reviewed the first Ninja Gaiden. We might as well start with Mean Machines, which gave the game a strong score of 88%. Julian argued that Ninja Gaiden is very much like a simplified version of the Shadow Warriors coin-op, with the hero running around beating the 7 shades out of the baddies and using the backdrops to climb up and leap to seemingly inaccessible parts of the screen. The graphics are great, with some varied, well-drawn backdrops and some great sprites. The sound doesn't quite match up to the standards of the graphics, but what's there is atmospheric and suits the action. It seems pretty tough at first, but once you get used to the combat moves, you'll find yourself cutting a swath through the enemy, sword and shurikens flying. Ninja Gaiden is a thoroughly enjoyable beat-em-up and is highly recommended to combat fans. Raze also liked the game, giving the NES title a high score of 90%. I mean, that's cool and all, but the magazine that I want to draw your attention to is Game Informer, which ended up giving Ninja Gaiden the lowest score. Reviewed just a few years after it was first released, the 3 Game Informer editors were less than excited about revisiting this 8-bit classic. Paul, the pro gamer, gave the game a 5 out of 10, noting that when the game first came out, I assumed it was the arcade translation. Wrong! Since then, I felt that the 8-bit version was lame. The arcade version was awesome, and this isn't even close. I guess I'm still bitter, so I'll leave this version in the attic and play the real arcade version on the Lynx. Ross, the rebel gamer, liked the game a little bit more, giving it a 7.25 out of 10. The cinemas between levels have yet to be topped by any NES game. The one problem this game has is its playability. The main character is a ninja, trained in both martial arts and assassinations, who should be virtually unstoppable. Unfortunately, that invincible quality just doesn't come through. With an average score of 6.5 out of 10, Game Informer was not impressed with Ninja Gaiden. And it's a real shame that we don't have more reviews, because I kind of want to know if there are more people that agreed with Ross and Paul. Based on the scores of the sequels, Game Informer was definitely in the minority when it came to the Ninja Gaiden trilogy. Personally speaking, I love it. And I'd argue that this is one of the very best games on the Nintendo Switch Online. I say give it a try and see who you agree with. Hey, thanks for watching me break down these classic reviews. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we post new episodes just like this every time Nintendo adds classic games to their online service. We have a whole playlist full of these episodes with hundreds of reviews. Now, here's the question I have for you. What's your favorite video game cinema scene? It can be long or it can be short. I'm just looking for a cutscene that plays between a level or fills in the story. Let me see your picks in the comments below. And with that, the weekend is finally upon us. Don't worry, we'll be back next week with reviews of Pop Slinger and that new Top Racer collection. You know, Top Racer, the game that used to be called Top Gear. While you wait for that, I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then.